In a remote village nestled deep within the Blackwood forest, there was a tale whispered only under the cover of night, a tale of love, betrayal, and an unholy vengeance. The village was shrouded in mist most days, and the old church stood at its heart, its bell tower looming ominously over the crooked cobblestone streets. For generations, the villagers had warned their children to never wander too close to the church at dusk. "Beware the corpse bride," they would say, their voices barely above a whisper, eyes darting to the shadows. The story, though cloaked in folklore, was grounded in a dark truth. Years ago, in that very village, a young woman named Elara was set to marry a wealthy merchant's son. Elara was known for her beauty, her long raven hair and her bright green eyes that seemed to shine even in the darkest corners of the forest. The day of her wedding, the village was alive with celebration, the air filled with the scent of wildflowers and the sound of joyous music. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the mood shifted. The groom, a man named Victor, was nowhere to be found. Elara, dressed in a gown as white as freshly fallen snow, waited at the altar, her heart pounding in her chest. Hours passed and the guests began to murmur, their laughter fading into uneasy whispers. Elara's father, a stern man with a weathered face, ordered the villagers to search for Victor, but he was gone, vanished without a trace. The next day, the villagers found Victor's body deep in the woods, his throat slashed, his eyes wide with terror. It was clear he had been murdered, but no one could say by whom. Grief-stricken and overcome with rage, Elara's father accused her of the crime, believing she had been jilted and had sought revenge. Despite her pleas of innocence, the villagers, desperate for justice, condemned her to death. On the night of her execution, a heavy storm rolled in, the sky crackling with lightning and the wind howling like a chorus of the damned. They dragged Elara, still in her wedding gown, to the church, where they chained her to the ancient altar. The villagers, driven mad with fear and anger, set fire to the church and watched as the flames consumed the wooden walls. Elara's screams echoed through the forest, mingling with the thunder and the rain. As the fire raged, the church bell tolled one final time, a death knell for the young bride. And then there was silence. The villagers, satisfied that justice had been served, returned to their homes, never speaking of the event again. But the forest remembered. Years passed and a darkness settled over Blackwood. The crops withered, animals vanished, and a sense of dread hung heavy in the air. People spoke of strange occurrences near the old church ruins. Whispers on the wind, ghostly apparitions, and the faint sound of a bell tolling in the dead of night. One evening, a group of curious children dared each other to venture to the church. They laughed nervously as they approached the ruins, the once mighty walls now reduced to charred stones covered in moss. As they stepped over the threshold, the air grew cold, and an unnatural silence fell upon them. A faint mist began to rise from the ground, coiling around their ankles like a living thing. The bravest of the group, a boy named Thomas, stepped forward, his breath visible in the frigid air. He saw something glimmering among the rubble and reached down to pick it up, a silver locket blackened by fire. Suddenly the temperature plummeted and the mist thickened, obscuring the children's vision. A chill ran down Thomas's spine as he heard the sound of soft, echoing footsteps behind him. He turned, heart pounding, and saw her. Elara stood before him, her once beautiful gown now tattered and stained with soot. Her hair, once flowing and dark, hung in matted tangles around her pale, lifeless face. Her eyes, once vibrant green, were now empty sockets, staring into nothingness. The locket fell from Thomas's hand, landing with a soft thud on the damp earth. She whispered, her voice a ghostly echo that sent shivers through the children's bones.
Why did you take him from me?
Thomas tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. The other children began to scream, but their cries were swallowed by the mist. Elara raised her hands, skeletal fingers reaching out. And the mist surged forward, wrapping around the children like a shroud. They were never seen again. The villagers, terrified and desperate to lift the curse, hired priests, witches, and anyone who claimed to have knowledge of the supernatural. But nothing worked. The village continued to decay, and one by one people left, unable to bear the weight of the unseen terror that gripped Blackwood.